Hey everyone, and a warm welcome to this Politics UK exclusive interview with Sian Berry. With the general election just weeks away, I spoke to Sian today about her role as the Green Party candidate in Brighton Pavilion, the only seat held by the Greens in the last Parliament. With former MP Caroline Lucas making the decision to step down, former Green Party leader Sian Berry stepped up to the mantle and decided to run for Green re-election. I had the privilege to speak to her today about the rise in Green popularity, the party's future, her time as leader of the Greens and leader of the Greens on the London Assembly, and of course, the upcoming general election. Have a listen. I'm joined now by Sian Berry, the Brighton Pavilion Green Party candidate ahead of the upcoming general election. Hi, Sian.
Hello, nice to be with you. Apologies if there's drilling in my flat in a short while as well.
No worries. It's great to have you here. So we'll dive right in because I don't want to keep you off the campaign trail for too long. So obviously it's been a very big few weeks for all parties, the Green Party included. And obviously you're the candidate in Brighton Pavilion. So why don't you just give listeners a bit of background on the seat?
Well, this has been, for 14 years, the seat held by Caroline Lucas, who is an absolute legend as far as the Green Party is concerned. It's the first seat we won, and the first past the post system at general election time always makes it hard for us to win a seat. But we really focused on Brighton Pavilion in 2010, and we broke through, and it was the most exciting moment for the party. People in Brighton have been doing this really special thing at every election since, and electing a Green voice into the House of Commons, and a really essential voice. Caroline stood up on so many issues, from fracking to trying to get rid of page 3 to recently being one of the few people standing up and really speaking out for the people of Gaza. She's always been that important Green voice, and Brighton's a really special place for putting her in there. I'm aiming to take over from Caroline. People in Brighton have been so welcoming to me since I've been here, working hard for the past year. The people on the doorstep seem really keen to keep that Green voice for the city, and they recognise the national importance of Green voices, particularly, actually, if Labour are going to have this huge supermajority that's predicted bigger than 97. The importance of having constructive opposition to any government in any democracy is really important, and we will be that in the next Parliament.
Absolutely. So, you've kind of had quite an extensive political career with the Greens, from leader of the Greens and leader of the Greens in the London Assembly to you ran in Holborn and St Pancras against Keir Starmer in 2017.
I did once run against Keir Starmer, only as a sort of not as proper target candidate, but it was important to be on the ballot in that snap election.
Absolutely. So why Brighton Pavilion? Why here and why now?
Well, the importance of keeping this seat is absolutely paramount to the Green Party, and I've been working alongside Caroline for a very long time. I actually worked on her 2010 campaign. I did a lot of communications work and website work, because that used to be my job. Used to be quite sort of technical, project managing programmers and things like that. So I took that job as part of that campaign to make it as good as it possibly could be online. Back in 2010, there was different pictures, a bit different picture as well. But I've worked with Brighton and Hove Green councillors a lot. They've been leading the way on some housing issues, which is also an issue I work on. Renters' rights is something that's as acute an issue in Brighton as it is anywhere else in the country. And as a private renter myself, I'm feeling that now. I rent here in Brighton. But there's just so much that we have in common as a city. The issues that I've worked on in the past, the issues that I face as a person, and the people of Brighton. And it's such an amazing place that I was absolutely delighted to move here and start campaigning. So, that's why. But also, it is very important that we put strong, experienced Green voices into Parliament. I am ready to be an MP. All the work I've done previously, challenging Labour to be better, is exactly the model for what we need in the next Parliament.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, Brighton Pavilion the Labour Party are standing Tom Gray in Brighton Pavilion. How concerned are you as to that kind of final election result?
Well, Labour would clearly like there to be no Green opposition to their democracy in Parliament. It's obvious why. And so while they've not made this constituency a target in recent elections, they are convinced that they should have it, that it's their seats, that all of Brighton and Hove should have only Labour MPs, and that we should have no Green voice. And that's profoundly undemocratic, but it is their right to try and win the seat, and they really are trying. So we've got a bigger team than we've ever had working so far on the ground. The number of people coming out to support the campaign, the number of people joining the campaign from other parties is just going up week after week. We've had 3 times more people out on doorsteps this week than last week. We expect that to continue. The city itself is mounting a really strong defence against Labour, trying to stamp out the Greens, and I think we'll win.
And just sticking with that for a moment, I'm interested to know, is there kind of a hierarchy of opposition within the Green Party? Like, are you treating having a Labour opposition here differently than you would having a Conservative opposition?
Well, actually, interestingly, we've got 4 target seats in this election. We're aiming to win 4 MPs, which is the kind of leap other parties have made under first past the post. It's the kind of increase we see in local councils as well. So we think that's realistic. 2 of the seats are Conservative seats currently, and we're aiming to take that, where Labour and the Lib Dems are not strong opposition. We're the strongest challenger to the Conservatives, and people are really coming over to us in those seats. Then obviously we're trying to win Bristol Central, which is a new constituency, but is theoretically Labour held. Carla Denyer, our co-leader, currently is an amazing candidate there and is winning all kinds of support, and we hope we can win that. And here it's a Green seat, but our main opposition is Labour. So there's obviously similarities between mine and Carla's campaign, and similarities between the campaigns of Ellie and Adrian, who are standing in the 2 Conservative seats. But ultimately, we're putting the same message across to absolutely everybody, that Green voices will make Labour a better government, and that will stand up for the things you care about, and that is true. And we're all extremely hardworking, and we've all got things that we've done in the past. Ellie was an MEP, Adrian's been our deputy leader before, he's run national charities on green issues. Carla's the person who put forward the original motion to declare a climate emergency. She changed the language about how we talk about the climate crisis, and that is genuinely an achievement that she pioneered. So we've all got reasons to vote for us, and we're all campaigning in the same kind of way, but against different opponents.
And I wonder, does it kind of offend you at all that Labour are putting so much effort into flipping Brighton Pavilion when there's so many Tory-held seats that they could be focusing these efforts on?
There are very nearby targets where they're trying to keep Conservative seats, where I definitely would, if I was them, I'd be putting more of my effort in. But like I say, it's their right to have the view that they don't want Green opposition. I think it's undemocratic of them, but it is very sort of authoritarian, which is the way that Keir Starmer is signalling he'll behave in government, particularly the way he's been dealing with some people with his own party as well. So it's what I would expect. And it's not for me to complain. I just have to get on with the job of winning.
Yeah. So I want to move on now to the London Assembly just quickly, if that's okay. Actually, sorry, before I do, just in terms of balance for our listeners, it's probably wise that I let you know that we did reach out to Tom Gray on multiple occasions to invite him to comment or also interview, to no avail.
Well, he should speak to you. You all should reach out to the other candidates as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving on now to the Assembly. Obviously, you were leader of the Assembly in London from 2016 to 2018. And then you had a very short stint again this year, just 3 days, I believe, before it was passed on to Green mayoral candidate Zoe Garbett. So do you want to walk us through just a little bit of what happened in those 3 days?
Well, I mean, we actually, at the very moment when we knew what the result was going to be, we tried to have me not take up the position and Zoe take it up bad. So we didn't wait 3 days. There was a bank holiday. We had to do it on the first working day after.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason was we were aiming to get 4 seats on the London Assembly this time, and we were just short of that. And I was planning to stay on if we had 4 seats. We didn't know the election was going to be next month. We thought it might be as late as December. So I've worked really hard on the London Assembly for 8 years, and I still had things I wanted to do. But if it came down to a choice when we had 3 seats of me taking up the post and then leaving quite soon and Zoe taking over, she was the next person on our list because we're all proportionally elected. When it came down to the choice of me or Zoe, it was really obvious that Zoe, who'd run an amazing campaign for London Met, should be the person that we put in. So I withdrew and she took over. And like I say, we aim to do that immediately, but it did take until the following Tuesday because of the bank holiday.
Yeah, fair enough. I spoke to Zoe on at City Hall on results day, and she spoke very highly of the really strong campaign that the Greens ran and seemed incredibly pleased with the assembly seats that you'd managed to be elected onto. Obviously,
yeah, I mean, three's a good result. I mean, it's a proportional system, and we are talking about 12 or 13% of the vote. It's a very high result. If you look across Europe, very few European parties achieve that level of support. It was genuinely good, but obviously we were aiming high to get 4.
So sticking with kind of 4, but moving from assembly seats to seats in the Commons, you're aiming for 4 seats at the election. You've got, obviously, you're standing in Brighton Pavilion. We've got Carla Denyer standing in Bristol Central, Ellie Chowns in North Hertfordshire, and Adrian Ramsey in Waveney Valley. So, obviously, last night Adrian was on ITV after the debate for a one-on-one interview, and I noticed he was kind of scrutinised a little bit for only aiming for 4 seats. And I mean, what's your response to that?
We ought to be winning, if you looked at it proportionally, and just on the current polling, which obviously is polling where people are going to vote under first past the post. So if it was more proportional, I think we'd be up at the kind of level that we've achieved in London and in Scotland. But even on current polling, we should be up to dozens of Green MPs. So it does seem like 4 is not really what our support ought to reflect. But it is a system where you have to be first. You've got to get across the line in an individual constituency, and so we are laser focused in our campaigning on those 4 seats to make sure that we win them. And then once we've achieved that, it will become much easier to win future seats, I think. We're aiming for a lot of second places in this election, and in all of those places, it'll be game on for the next election.
And I think the other key issue brought up in that interview was this kind of idea of making sure that you take the people with you. I think that was how it's worded, in terms of not everyone being able to afford things like heat pumps or to change their car or things like that. What's your kind of response to that?
I mean, absolutely. Adrian spoke really well on that. And that's why one of the first things we'll bring forward is the Green New Deal bill, which is massive government investment to make sure that everyone can make these changes without it relating to what your income is. We need to do these things so that people's bills go down. But you can't expect people who can't afford to pay their bills in the first place to invest in the new technology that will bring them down long term. It has to be government investment, and that's the exact investment that Labour have scaled back on dramatically in their plans. And it's a genuine mistake of theirs to say that it isn't worth investing in this stuff that people need in order to reduce their impact on the environment, but also cut their daily living costs. And create jobs and build up a stronger, more resilient economy, not just a bigger one. These are all things that we still have. We will still have huge investment in our manifesto. The bill I want to bring forward is the Green New Deal bill. I'm backed by this amazing coalition of young people called Green New Deal Rising, whose only mission is to get that kind of investment put forwards into the next parliament as quickly as possible. It's something the country really, really needs. And Rachel Reeves, who's the Labour, she'll be the Chancellor after the election, currently has fiscal rules that mean they can't do that kind of investment. And those rules are not the hope and the change and the real investment in the future that the country needs. So that'll be our number one task when we get elected.
Yeah. Just staying with Labour for a moment, actually. It's no secret that Labour under Keir Starmer has shifted. I mean, he even calls it the Changed Labour Party. And I think what we're seeing with such increased regularity is that this is disenfranchising some people further to the left of the party. Are you guys seeing an influx of memberships and an influx of support off the back of that?
We very much are, yes. There are people coming just anecdotally within Brighton. Every time we have a big campaigning event, people come up to me and say, I've just left Labour. Just a wonderful person last weekend left Labour the previous day, joined us, bought the T-shirt and turned up to knock on doors. We are gaining so many enthusiastic new members from people who've literally been told by the Labour leadership they're not welcome in their party anymore because they believe in things like a fairer tax system, or that the NHS should not be further privatised, or for the genuine climate action, or or for peace in Gaza and really standing up for human rights across the world. These are all areas where Labour have deliberately alienated a big chunk of their actual membership, and those members are getting the message and they're coming to us.
So, I mean, do you think Labour is still the party of working class people and of socialism?
We know there's been a really big recent conflict with the unions about the New Deal for working people, which was announced as firm Labour policy not long ago, but now is under question for the next manifesto. I don't know what the result of all that is, but I know that there's an enormous disquiet within the unions. Many more union branches are reaching out to our local party teams, and I think at a national level there are unions that are thinking potentially of diversifying their political support. It's a genuine question that whether Labour are still committed to what was their founding principle there.
Yeah, it's the whole kind of concept of being the party of business but also the party of people. Some kind of criticise that of being a bit oxymoronic, I guess. Would you say that the Greens in return are the party of working people now?
I think so, because I mean, if you think about our core principles, our philosophical basis, it is very much about listening to people and absolutely resisting. We've got all kinds of standards and ethics towards not being susceptible to lobbying from big corporations or those with the largest pockets. We're very, very grassroots in our approach, and when it comes to policy, we also try to make sure that the power and the control is always pushed as far down as it possibly can be to be sensibly organised. These are clear principles that we follow, and it seems like Labour are very, very top down and very much keen to court lobbyists and people who want to give big corporate donations, things we would explicitly reject. So these are very different values that our two parties have, and it's becoming clearer that difference is getting wider.
And just before we move on from Labour and Starmer, last night's debate, did you watch?
I did. It was really
What did you think? What did you think?
It was so tit for tat, so scrappy. The question that really bothered me was when I think it was Claire from the audience said, we're having a climate catastrophe. Why have both your parties cut back on green investment? And the answers that they gave were so narrow and so lacking in understanding of the fact that this is a system-wide problem. They talked about electric cars, they talked about wind farms, which are, investment in those things is part of the answer, but not about changing the system, not about really making sure that we avert catastrophe and that the UK is a leader in this. It was hopeless. I genuinely described it as hopeless. The tone of the debate was awful too. I mean, the way
Yeah.
that Rishi Sunak just wouldn't shut up and wouldn't let Keir Starmer speak. I mean, not that Keir Starmer speaking is amazing, but it was a poor quality interaction between them as well.
Yeah. So, one last question before we wrap up. A lot of people are concerned primarily with getting the Conservative Party out of office. And then, obviously, in a lot of places, that raises questions about tactical voting and, just voting for the opposition simply as a protest vote. Now, there's a lot of instances where this can negatively impact the Green Party. So what would you say to people who don't know whether to vote for the main opposition or to vote for the Green Party?
I mean, the Conservatives are definitely toast. We know that 100% of the polls are predicting a giant Labour majority, not just a majority, but a really big one. And that is what the country is currently telling pollsters that they are going to vote for. Anyone who's currently planning to vote Green should still vote Green. There's absolutely no question that the Conservatives are out based on your current voting intentions. So do not change your vote.
Okay, wonderful stuff. Thank you so much for that. This has been Sian Berry, the MP Green candidate for Brighton Pavilion. Thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. It's been amazing to get to hear.
It's an honour. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. That was Sian Berry, former leader of the Green Party and the Green Party candidate for Brighton Pavilion. If you've enjoyed this interview today, make sure you're following us on X and over on Instagram too. And if you want more from Politics UK, click the link in our bio to find out more about our subscription content, with plans starting from as little as just £2 a month. A huge thank you to all our followers and to Sian and her team, of course. Stay tuned for the latest political news as we keep moving closer to the general election.